She screamed at me, called me disloyal, a traitor, every ugly word you can imagine. Then she grabbed her phone and fired off a string of truly horrific messages to Ruby. The next day she gave me the full silent treatment, but I could hear her on the phone crying to our dad, painting me as the villain. Dad, of course, took her side immediately because she's the bride and she's been through so much. Mom was the only one who told Anne she owed Ruby, and me, a massive apology, so suddenly Anne wasn't speaking to Mom either. Ruby kept insisting nothing had happened between them before the engagement, no fight, no falling out, nothing. Anne's response to anyone who asked, "Mind your own business and support your real family." Update 1. A couple days later I decided I was going to swallow my pride and try to repair things with Anne. I walked into the kitchen ready to tell her how much I loved her and that we could all move past this, but she was sitting at the table looking like someone had spit in her coffee again. The vibe was ice cold, so I backed off. That same morning, Anne's husband Dave called me sounding completely drained. He asked if I could please talk to Anne because they'd had a massive blowout fight. Apparently on the wedding night, after the screaming incident, Dave had quietly pulled Ruby aside and thanked her for coming despite everything, and told her she looked great. Anne overheard, flipped out on him later, and now he was in the doghouse too. Dave begged me to explain what he'd done wrong and how to fix it with Anne. This was the first time in the entire time they'd been together that he'd ever asked me for relationship advice, so I knew he was desperate. I told him I was just as confused as he was. That's when he dropped the first real bombshell. He said the reason Ruby wasn't in the wedding party at all, neither side, was because he wanted Ruby to be his best woman and Anne wanted her as maid of honor, but Anne refused to share her, so they both agreed to leave her out completely. He swore Anne had explained everything to Ruby and that Ruby had been really hurt by it. I was floored. Ruby had never mentioned any of this ever. Update 2. 30 minutes later Dave called back, this time practically yelling. He demanded to know if any of his groomsmen had acted inappropriately toward me or the bridesmaids. I could hear Anne in the background shrieking something incoherent. I told him no, everyone had been perfectly respectful. Then he asked if Ruby even knew she was originally supposed to be his best woman. I said from everything Ruby had told me no, she had no idea. He let out this bitter laugh and hung up. Seconds later Ruby texted me, "Wait, best woman, what is happening?" Then one of the bridesmaids messaged me in a panic, "If Dave calls you again, do not answer." And from the living room I could hear Anne on the phone absolutely screaming at our dad. The house was chaos. I knew we were inches away from the real story finally coming out.